And we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to a very, very special episode of the Deep Dive in conjunction with Season 2 of Eclipse, the newest hit actual play to be coming on the airwaves of Twitch. If you haven't already checked out Season 1, you should definitely go check it out after the show and consider donating to the Season 2 Indiegogo. It's excellent material, excellent production, and really will kind of really blast you away with all the stuff that they were able to do. So, but first, let's do some introductions. My name is Nick Francia, and I'll be your host of The Deep Dive. The Deep Dive, the show for game masters by game masters, where we take a deep dive on some of our favorite RPG systems. Tonight, I'm joined by Miguel Coronado III. You may know him recently as the Warden of Eclipse, the hit new actual play, which I just talked about, which is using the Mothership RPG. But he's also a talented art director and concept artist whose work can be seen on works such as Voyage to the Stars, Near Dark Studios' Death Attack, and a slew of other projects. Miguel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for being on. I'm sure everyone was super excited for this, and kind of the stars just aligned for this.
Yeah, I'm glad I could be here.
So I gotta ask, how do you feel after wrapping up season 1 of Eclipse?
Well, grateful for a break. It took a lot of work to put that together, and way more work than I think Josephine or I had anticipated. And it was basically 6 weeks of nonstop work to plan out everything, get everyone's schedules coordinated, get the actual game going, and then finally Josephine spent the rest of the week editing all the footage together and putting it together, all the little overlay and everything. So she was drained by the end of it, and I was likewise drained a little bit. I was just trying to keep on top of the game the whole time. I have a day job, so I between going to work and just coming home and then having to jump back into planning more things, it was quite hectic, but it was good. It was a great experience. It was something that, like, now that we know, we got an Indiegogo. So now that we know how much work it takes, we had to, like, okay, we need to fund this somehow, because this is like, it was really fun. It was really fun, and it's very much something that I highly recommend anyone doing if you're going to have a good group to go with, and if you want to try and play online, it's worth a shot. It's a fun experience. It's like putting together a play almost, or something.
No, that's great. And honestly, I think it's just it's kind of funny how, like, with funding, it's just like the one thing you want to fund is just time, is the ability to have more time to do all this. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, you've had the production value of the show has not been lost on anyone, because it definitely is one of the more highly produced actual plays out there. And among the sea of actual plays that have just kind of like been on Twitch, there's something that stands out about it, from the score to the way that all the overlays are set to the little animations in between, and also just the quality of game that's been produced. Definitely, I don't think I'm alone in saying that you've kind of hit it out of the park with this one.
Thank you. Yeah, that it meant a lot to us to have a high production value, as best we can without being able to physically tape together. But I think the show itself and the genre of the show lends itself to this remote video kind of style. Everyone's on a ship, and the idea that everyone maybe has a terminal on the ship was kind of the inspiration, that, like, you would be on a ship that might be so big that you have to communicate through video screens, and kind of keeping it like this vibe of, like, different people at their stations having to talk to each other remotely was kind of an aspect of the show we wanted to kind of play with. And with COVID, that's the only way to do it now. So
no, definitely there is some sort of irony in the fact that, like, the show being about this crew kind of isolated from everything else in this deep dark space, in a time where most people are isolated from, like, everything, or just stuck in their apartments all day.
Yeah, it was it worked out really well, and I think it gave us something. It definitely gave us something to take our minds off of what's going on right now. I think at first when we had thought of the show earlier on, right when the pandemic was starting out, and it just seemed like a terrible idea to do like a sci-fi horror show right when
Hmm.
everyone was like going through like a living horror. But as time went on, it was like, okay, we should maybe try and put this together and like just go for it and see what happens.
No, it definitely it's worked out for you. And just for everyone watching at home, the Indiegogo is on the stream in the, I believe, bottom right corner. So currently we're sitting at 55.84. If that reaches 6,000 by the end of this stream, I'll be giving out a few free copies of A Pound of Flesh, which is Mothership RPG, a module for it.
Oh yeah.
Yep, the rulebook is free and available to download for free PDF, or you can buy a physical copy, but the modules are something definitely to take a look at. So for everyone else out there, consider donating to the Indiegogo, because they deserve it. All right, so to dive right into this deep dive, can you kind of give people from like the uneducated audience out there a little bit of rundown of what Mothership RPG is?
Well, yeah, it's a sci-fi horror RPG, and it's basically designed to give you an experience similar to the film Alien. At its core, it's designed to give you like this isolating uh, kind of retro sci-fi
Mm-hmm.
vibe, and it easily lends itself to be like an Alien kind of RPG if you wanted to go through and just play Alien, where you're a small crew and there's some alien creature on board the ship. But it quickly lends itself to become some kind of space cosmic horror. Also, there's lots
Mm-hmm.
of sanity gameplay aspects to it, and it's very versatile. It's very bare bones to a degree. I mean, for as much information as they give you, it's very customizable, and so like you can do a lot with it. And Pound of Flesh was one of the books I used as a resource for the show,
Oh, nice.
um, and it was super helpful. And it just to consolidate some ideas, you don't have to completely homebrew everything. It's just like nice to be able to open up a book and go, oh wow, like there's just a little encyclopedia for you to kind of go through. Um, yeah, it's it's fun. I mean, like the book
Mm-hmm.
itself is like no bigger than a like a zine.
Yeah, it's
It's
like 44 pages long, I believe.
yeah, and so it's light carrying. You could easily buy it and just carry it on you at all times and just have it with you. I picked it up at PAX South, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and the artwork stood out to me, and the size of it stood out to me as someone that's into RPGs. I'm not too rules heavy. I like to focus more on the story, and so I thought, well, if the book's that small, it can't be that dense in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like mechanics, and I was pretty correct. So it ended up being exactly kind of what I need for a game. Up with the mechanics too much sometimes, and then it's easier for me just to focus on the story and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like live within that realm of letting the players kind of guide the story along and just kind of feeding them a little bit. Um, yeah, and the combat's fairly easy, and there's a bunch of fun little mechanics in there that involve like cyber mods and
Mm-hmm.
what else? There's a whole slew of like sanity and stress metrics that you can play with that are really fun, which we had fun with in the show, and it's just so customizable. It's just something that you get to explore easily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I believe before this year, Mothership RPG was pretty much your go-to whenever you needed to do like sci-fi horror. They're really surprisingly for a very successful genre. There's not a lot of tabletop RPGs around it other than Alien that just kind of released this year. But I almost think Mothership still has it's like a really good footing in just the whole way and genre of it. Just because you can play stuff that is an Alien like you were talking about. You can do more cosmic horror. You can have your Event Horizon and etc.
Yeah, Event Horizon. That was the other one. That's another famous title that you could find like similarities to, like a through line. If you want to play like an Event Horizon style RPG game,
Mm-hmm.
this is the perfect system for you.
So, what's kind of your, if you don't mind explaining to the audience, what's your personal relationship with sci-fi horror in general? Was that like a medium you enjoyed growing up, like a genre that you were really into, or?
Yeah, so I grew up watching the Alien films. Most of the '80s, like kind of like the trifecta, like Terminator, Alien, and Predator.
Hmm.
I grew up watching those films back when I was like in elementary school, so I was exposed to them way too early, and it completely influenced what I'm into, what I like now, and I think sci-fi horror for me has been what kind of lends itself to sci-fi lends itself to horror because of the
Hmm.
unknown aspect, and then it's just something like for me it's something I grew up with. So like in third grade they used to sell the Alien toys,
Hmm.
which I think they changed the law since then. You can't sell like action figures from movies that are rated R like at normal toy stores.
Hmm.
You could do it at other places, but there was this release of these Alien toys back when I was like in second grade and third grade, and my mom bought them for me, and we'd never seen the film, and she was like, "Oh, you haven't seen it? We gotta go watch it." So we rented it that night and watched it, and it was it was a this terrifying film, but we quickly watched the second one, and
Hmm.
then like the third, and just became this whole thing. Watched Predator 2, um, Terminator, all these films that are really too adult for a child to be watching. Those were kind of things I grew up with, and I saw those, and I was more influenced by those than I was Star Wars. So for me, watching Star Wars, it was like I'd already seen Alien,
Hmm.
and I'd already seen like the Predator and these other '80s movies, and I was like, well, Star Wars is pretty cool, but like, it's no Alien. Um, yeah, it's interesting kind of history with those films.
Was your mom like mortified when you finally rented Alien? It was like, oh my god, I didn't know this was like in it. Like it
No,
was a.
no, she rented them for us, and it was part of this explaining how movies were, and it
Hmm.
was she was like, this are all everything you see in here is fake. There's these people that make all this. It's all make believe. So, um, yeah, we were able to watch. My dad watched them with us, and then I remember nobody had seen them. Like I went to school the next day, and I was trying to talk to people about these films, but nobody knew what I was talking about. And they were just like, what? What are you talking about? Predator. And I had to explain the concept to them, and I was
Hmm.
like, he's got to go. He hunts you, and he takes your spinal cord out. And trying to explain that to these third graders. But yeah, that it's interesting kind of background there. And then I remember watching Event Horizon in theater when it came out,
Hmm.
and it was like what's his name, the actor from Jurassic Park is in it, and I just remember the last film I saw him in was Jurassic Park, and in that film he goes like insane, and
Yeah, Sam Neill. He's crazy in that.
and Sam Neill, yeah, he goes insane and like is nothing like his role in Jurassic Park. And I just remember thinking like, oh my god, this isn't the same guy at all. And yeah, Event Horizon was a fun one too. um yeah, sci-fi horror for me is just something I grew up with, and something that has influenced me for a long time. Yeah.
So, would Eclipse like kind of your love letter to sci-fi horror? Oh.
Yeah, Eclipse is I wouldn't say Eclipse is a new thing entirely. So like as much as we can do sci-fi horror with the RPG systems, I feel like there's always this slant towards comedy that kind of can pop up,
Oh yeah.
and I feel like you just never know what the players are going to do, and no matter how much you plan, um, it's you can never account for the type of antics that people are going to get into. And so Eclipse, we kind of knew going in it wasn't going to be like a straight horror, like the what's that
Hmm.
game called, Ten Candles. um it wasn't going to be this like doom and gloom game, but it was going to be something different, and we wanted it to be something that we could expand upon in less of a horror genre kind of way later on. So like we want to start off strong and like make it kind of spooky and fun, especially because it came out in October.
Hmm.
But we wanted to be able to take it and just turn it into a more epic sci-fi if we wanted to. And so I've tried to keep it in this realm where it could dance between just really scary and gross, and then it could just stay. It could stay more lighthearted sci-fi too, and just ride that wave, and people could enjoy it. I was hoping we hit that. So
I definitely like appreciate the highs and lows, and I feel like in order to appreciate, either or the highs and lows, you need the other, because if you're just kind of exposed to like the gloom and terror all the time, you kind of get desensitized to it. And I think that Eclipse kind of does a nice job of just like balancing that all out.
thanks. Yeah, I think that's one of the keys to making the scary stuff more fun. I feel like we wanted to make it more of like an edge of your seat scary, where people are getting really nervous watching it. And you can only do horror so many ways with like a tabletop RPG that people are watching,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not a player in the game, so you can't be nervous for yourself because you're not really playing it. And then you can't, it's not like a movie, so you're not watching something horrific, or like you're not getting that kind of build up that a film can do.
Mm-hmm.
um and there's, like the sound design is like it's limited to either what we put in afterwards or me making noises with my mouth. So the sound design is really limited too, and so like you kind of gotta just go with it, and then hope that everyone has fun along the way.
And definitely, the way that you talk about it seems like it's been a lot of fun for everyone involved, and you as well. Generally, when you're like a GM, sometimes there's this kind of notion that like, oh, as a GM, you're not gonna have fun because you're too busy worrying about it. But you seem to be kind of enjoying yourself throughout every game.
Yeah, it's for me, the GMing started off like kind of like, I think with everyone goes through this. I planned like a ton of stuff early on, and I was like planning out like these different characters they might meet, and like these locations, and then like the players just don't even go there, and then you're just like, okay, well, all that work just went out the window, and then like they go like left when you were planning them to go right. So as soon as I could lay the groundwork for what was going to happen, and I could see how they were playing off each other, it was more important just to get them to uh, carry the narrative themselves. Like, I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to be feeding the story. I don't want to tell a story like an actual storyteller where I'm just sitting there like describing everything constantly. I want them to ask questions here and there, and then I think one thing we did well version of with our version of the game, when they ask the warden, which is me, anything, I respond in world as the computer system versus responding out of character. There was limited moments so I responded out of character, and that was a fun idea that we came up with early on before we even started the show. Where I said like, well, it'd be cool if all the players are talking to a camera and a computer screen,
Mm-hmm.
whenever they have a question, instead of saying like, well, DM, what's up here, or what do I, like just arbitrarily asking the nether, which like it happens in D&D a lot, where you're like, what do I see? And you're like, who are you talking to? You just kind of like talking to like the DM, so you're talking to. In game, you're obviously not saying what do I see. That's like an out of character moment. We wanted to kind of keep things in character the whole time, so that when the players have a question, they would say warden, and then I would try to chime in like a robot voice coming over, like a Siri or something, coming over the intercom, and it would be like this in-world response that would guide them. And that was something that was fun to play with, because the insanity that they experienced could come through my actual descriptions in world versus like just me reading out descriptions uh,
Mm-hmm.
out of character. So that worked out really well, and that was something that we had fun with. I had fun with a lot, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of play a character along with them.
Yeah, and I think there's so many other benefits other than just being like just more fun because you are a character in that world, but now you have all the kind of like notions that a character would have, even if you're just like a like mother type computer system. You can
Yeah,
be unreliable. You're not omniscient.
yeah. That was the other thing. I love the Alien films, and all of the Alien films have this. Well, they talk to Mother, which is the name of the computer of the ship. I think it's called Father in the fourth one.
Hmm.
But there's these moments in all those films where they like, Mother, where's the life form located, and then it's just like, life form, not to tell, it's like talking, trying to guide them through this hellhole they're in. And there's always a sequence in the Alien films where it's like, we're going to start self-destruct sequence, and the alien, the mother, starts counting down. So it just heightens the tension there, and it's just a fun way to have like it's a fun way to release info into the world without having to kind of break character or break the world and stop the story for a little bit and be like, okay, well, what you really notice is this, and um, it's just a great system to do that into because of the sci-fi nature.
Hmm. So, kind of getting more into the system, uh,
Yeah.
because initially you're gonna look at Mothership RPG and you're gonna be like, okay, this is definitely like a survival sci-fi horror like kind of deal. But the game, the way you're describing it, the game definitely excels at others and telling other types of stories, like whether it be like action or drama or mystery.
Yeah, it especially the expansion little books you can buy, like a Pound of Flesh um comes with a Pound of Flesh. I believe that's the one that's just it's just a bunch of like stats and data for you to throw into your story. And it's a bunch of world building tools basically. And I mean, you could easily make it a cyberpunk story,
Hmm.
and just have a cyberpunk tale in the world system. Uh, and it's like I said, it's very much like a base structure for you to build upon. And depending on your crew and what people are feeling like playing too, you could really gear it towards the party as a whole. We knew what we wanted to do was the sci-fi horror aspect, but we wanted to go ahead and eventually kind of bring it to this like ragtag crew of people. And so we
Hmm.
wanted to make sure we could tell that story too. And that was something that we did via just like there was certain checks I kind of uh made up in the game where like people were trying to attempt certain things, and the system didn't really have a specific way to do that, so we would improvise by using like an intelligence roll
Hmm.
or a speed check to attempt something. And we kind of played it almost more like a D&D system there, where it was like, okay, you're trying to notice something, use your intelligence to notice it, like it was
Hmm.
almost like a perception check. And the sanity roll was interesting, and then there's this whole mechanics with stress that's fun to play with, that's pretty unique to the system, where like you compound stress onto yourself, and it doesn't really do anything until you do a panic check. And then with the moment you do a panic check, you got to kind of like check against all the stress you've accumulated,
Hmm.
and it kind of determines what's about to happen to you if you begin to panic. And there's this little table that tells you like, this is what you do when you panic. And um, you can use that table, or you could use that whole little idea of like a laddered system to make your own panic table. We didn't have anyone. I tried to get people to panic. They didn't panic in the show, but I was trying to get them to. I wanted someone to panic in the show, but they kept
Hmm.
rolling pretty well, and it was something that didn't really happen this season. Hopefully, we can get them to panic next season.
So a slow burn for season 2.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go kind of to the origin stories about Eclipse, and also why you decided to pick Mothership RPG, which I feel like you've definitely have like explained upon. So how did you, when you were kind of gathering people for this, when because from what I understand, you can tell me if I'm wrong enough, this is kind of like the brainchild between like you and Josephine. You were, because you guys did the world building aspects together. So when you were
Yeah.
gathering people to be a part of the crew, how did you pitch it to them?
Um, I mean, honestly, it was largely due to the whole COVID pandemic. We were saying we got to do something. Like everyone's, like it would be fun to do something. Do y'all want to be involved in something right now? It's all remote, so it'd be easy to do. And we've all wanted to work on something together for a while. Brian
Hmm.
and Patrick, who are in the show, I used to work with them at my old job, and we used to work together with Josephine. We all used to work together actually, and we haven't really had a chance to kind of be in a project together since those days when we physically worked together. So we were looking forward to maybe doing something with them, and they have other projects they do on the side. Brian has his um, what is it called? The internet broadcast system on Twitch,
Hmm.
and together they do the Necronomic Comedy Hour, It's a podcast, kind of a Halloween horror comedy podcast. Um, and that's something they've been doing for a while. So I knew they were good at improvising. And Alex and Jasmine, they come from the RPG streaming world. And we already knew they were going to be good performers, and they're friends with ours. So when it came to picking out who we wanted, it was a matter of finding friends who we knew could improvise well,
Mm-hmm.
and people that we could kind of push a little bit more in terms of like the role play. Um, and that little culmination came together fairly nicely. And then the remote nature of it was easily facilitated because everyone, either they're already streamers or they had to be remote for their day job because they, because of the COVID pandemic. So they all had these remote setups and they were already ready to go. And it was a matter of just figuring out the logistics from there. But we tried to pick people that we could rely on their kind of improvising chops, and people that we really wanted to, just because this was all just for fun, really.
Mm-hmm.
People we really wanted to just like spend that time with, and so it was like, okay, we're gonna have to spend a few hours with these people. Like, let's make it like actual friends. We don't just want to ask anyone. We want to find people that we already want to hang out with anyway. And all that little, all those considerations went into like the team we put together, and it turned out really well. I think it was really fun for everyone. We had some fun moments, and the team got along well together outside too.
And it's nice to hear that you had like this like almost like reunion after all these years with all these people. And that definitely lends to, the familiarity of one another to the show. You're all very comfortable around each other, and it shows on the stream. Because sometimes you kind of watch these actual plays, and they almost have like there's like that awkwardness because not everyone knows
Yeah.
each other. But definitely, I feel like that's something that's not in Eclipse.
Yeah, and that's what we did too. Actually, we play tested a campaign before Eclipse started. So
Okay.
we did a completely off the camera campaign it was us figuring out the system. And that was the hard part for me. I had to come up with the campaign for them before the show started, and I wanted it to be fun, but I didn't want it to be so good that I used up all my good ideas before the show started. And so like I would come up with certain ideas and I was like, no, I gotta save that for the show. I don't want to use that here. And then there were certain ideas I was like trying to play with just for the prototype campaign. And
Mm-hmm.
we were meeting on the same we record on Sundays normally, so we were recording like for a few Sundays ahead of time. And it was like a play test, but also like a workshop. So we would
Mm-hmm.
play, and then we would stop the game, and I would say like, okay, like that doesn't work, we need to do a better job describing things here, or I need to do this differently for the actual show. Or like with some of the improvising, like Patrick Neese, who's on the show, he has actual background in like on stage improvisation, like
Mm-hmm.
so he's really good at this on stage kind of performance where you kind of just carry the narrative. um, and that's something that we had to figure out in the game, where like he would start throwing out ideas that were kind of like they would end up world building, and he wouldn't let me know whether he was just joking or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like the character was joking, but he was expecting it to become like what do you call it, like canon.
Mm-hmm.
But he hadn't told me that this is all during the playtest. And so he was like, I thought we ran into this thing. And I was like, I thought that was just like a joke your character said. He was like, no, no, no. I thought I said that. And that was like how the thing is from now on. And I was like, no, like, you can't just make it canon. You gotta tell me if you're going to like try and like world build. Like, oh, I can confirm it with you, but you got to like, I have to know as like the GM, I have got to know what the canon portions of the game are, so I can go, okay, wait, no, that's canon now, and like that's something that we need to refer back to later. But he wasn't informing me because he's just used to a live on stage back and forth
Mm-hmm.
with like just another player. And that was something we had to iron out early on. And then there was a lot of just like um, me describing like spaceship stuff, which we never really got down entirely, but uh like I still am confused about like the port side, starboard side, like, all those like jargon terms that would
Yeah.
be good to learn. um some of that stuff we were playtesting, and it was like, okay, I got to practice some of this stuff. I got to practice some more lingo of
Hmm.
like we're in sector, like what is our lingo going to be for traveling through space. And that was more of the show side of it, because when you're just playing a game with people at home, you,
Just how
you
to
kind
hand
of just,
wave it.
yeah, you just throw it like you're in sector, you're like you're in this area, and I was trying to minimize that. I'm trying to minimize pausing like that, like the verbal pausing, the ticks, and all the
Hmm.
stuttering. Um, for the show itself, I wanted it to be a little more fluid. There was still lots of um, kind of word searching where people stop and you kind of search for the word you're looking for, but I'd prefer having some slower word searching moments than a bunch of uh, like what I'm doing now, which is like I'm
I'm in
trying
the
to keep
same
the
boat.
flow going. So that was a lot of the playtesting we were doing. We were like, okay, how can we streamline this more,
Hmm.
and how can we I wanted the mechanics of the game to be in the background. I didn't
Hmm.
want people to be like, I didn't want people to come in and be like, I'm gonna learn how to play Mothership, and it was like, yeah, no, we're gonna tell a story really. um, and you might learn along the way certain things, but we weren't really like focusing on like this is how you play Mothership, and um, there would be moments in the show where we'll say like, well, that adds stress, right? And we'll be like, yeah, that's true. We kind of like announce certain rules of the game, but those are more to make sure that we remembered, because in the moment too, we'd be like, there was several times where like I forgot to get the players to add stress on. And I think there was one episode where we realized like everyone should have been adding stress on for the past few checks, and we just weren't doing it. And we're like, oh shit, like everyone should have been way more stressed out, but like
More
whatever.
panicking. That there you go.
It would have been more panicking, and that's kind of the downside of it, because it would have provided me some more moments to have the panic check happen. Um, but one thing I don't like doing when I do run games, I don't like the rule lookup moment. I like whenever
Hmm.
everyone has to pull the book out and like the whole game stops and everyone just stops to like find the rules. Like, wait, hold on, let me just look that up real quick. Like the moment someone says, "Let me look it up real quick," I just want to say, "No, you do it. Either you do
Yeah.
it or you don't do it, and let's
Just
just keep
screw it.
moving." Yeah, because like now we're stopping the game, but now we're looking up, like it feels like we're looking up a dictionary words or something. Um, so that's something that I try, and we have a home game, a D&D home game that we do, and
Hmm.
it's a similar gameplay where like the moment we've got to stop and look up the rules, it's like, no, I'll just make a call, and I'd rather fudge the call in the moment and keep the movement going than slow it down. And like with that game, that's traditional D&D, so like the mechanics can bog down like a fight. Like a fight could take a long time in
Oh
D&D.
yeah, like hours.
Yeah, so like I want to keep moving and just like okay, you hit him, it's fine. Like let's keep going. Like we're not gonna sit here and unless it's something really really cool, and that's like I like rely on the players to. I rely on the players to inform me on those
Hmm.
information, those situational like moments, and it's the same with Mothership. Like I was relying on them as much as they were relying on me. Um, Josephine would triple read the book, and I would read. I read it a few times over, and then like there's still it's still a good chunk of information there, and so you got to go through. There's like a whole ship combat we didn't get into in the show, and it's a whole different like combat system from the regular combat system.
Hmm.
Um, that'll be fun to get into later on, and there's like specific mechanics with like doing like hyper jumps and
Hmm.
using your fuel, and so like that's another thing that'll be more fun to explore in like season 2, which is like kind of rationing the fuel and like making sure your ship's repaired, and you can really get into the nitty gritty of it if you want to. Like the even though it's a small book, it allows you to really kind of get into the weeds with like being out in space and you design your own ship, and you can design your own ship, and you can add in like life support, and you got to consider how many people are in your crew, and that determines like how many life support units you need in order to make sure you have enough people, or like if you have too many people, they'll start dying, and like so. Um, it was all part of the mechanics that we had in the show, but we didn't really get to those because the story didn't lend itself to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's part of the Mothership RPG, so you can play it in many different ways. I think with most RPGs, you could play it like and really go into the weeds with it and like get into the rules and like okay, like really like go all out, or you could keep it light and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
keep it like more surface level role play, which is kind of what we were doing for this, and like we were doing it for the sake of the show, and that was something we kept in mind for like this for the Eclipse. It was like we're going to be making a show that's meant to be on Twitch. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't going to be just a game that we're going to play to have fun with. Like it's supposed to be a show. So where it makes sense to break the rules and have more fun for the show, like where the show can shine and be its own thing, we're going to lean that way. And where it was going to become more of just like a dice rolling game, we were going to kind of shy away from that a little bit.
Yeah, because as much as it's really cool to sit there and say, oh, I want to play a whole session about repairing and rebuilding my ship.
Yeah.
People don't want to watch. Unfortunately, people are might not want to watch that for like 3-4 hours, and that's understandable. And kind of want to just kind of walk back to a point you made earlier, because one of the points I want to talk to is the rule book itself and the layout of this book.
Yeah.
I like, despite being 44 pages, it's pretty packed with like charts and charts of tables that you can roll on, plus other information. How do you, as an artist, do you like the book? Do you love the art in the book, or?
The no, the art in the book's really fun. It's got a nice cohesive style, and they make use of the space. Like the entire book is filled with information, like
Oh
from the
yeah.
inside cover to the back outside cover, and I think even the back of the book is like a chart. It's over here, looking at it right now. But it's the art itself is fun. It's like this weird little pen and ink drawings and like these
Hmm.
black and white, kind of like almost like scribbles, but like it's just enough to give you an idea of it's nothing too specific, but it kind of keeps it more open for you to make up your own little world with it. It doesn't give you any there's no kind of creatures or like alien stats in the main book. It's more of a
Hmm.
player's book, and that's something that the company, I think it's Tuesday Night Games, they'll
Hmm.
be they'll be putting together a warden's manual still. They should be coming out. I read this online. It should be coming out in 2020 or 2021. Um, but there's going to be a warden's manual that's going to be more of a compiled like like a warden's kit that will accompany like the current ship book is it's more for a player,
Hmm.
and then the supplemental books are varying adventures and like kind of like almost encyclopedias of little like world building information.
Yeah, because they have that anthology that they put out within the last year, which the Whispers, the Dissident Whispers.
Yeah. We used, let me trying to pull it up right here. um Pound of Flesh
Hmm.
that's a fun one. That one's just like filled with information. And then Dead Planet. um Dead Planet, it's got its own little like it's its own like narrative story and like adventure.
Hmm.
But the stats still function as like a little like a toolkit for you. And I used some of the stats for like when we had our creatures come into the show. I used some of the creatures from Dead Planet as like the framework, and that saved me time from having to like invent a creature stats on my own. I just kind of found some of like the creatures in the back of the book there, and just was like, okay, so these stats now belong to this new creature.
Hmm.
And for Mothership, for Eclipse, we wanted to keep everything kind of original. So all the creatures I wanted to keep original. We use all kinds of stuff from Pound of Flesh, the slickware, slick sockets, this whole concept of like chips in your head, and artificial holographic worlds and stuff. We definitely leaned in heavy on that. And yeah, those books were super helpful. And we got those later on. Like the show was about to start, and it was like, I think it was like the week before the show was going to premiere. I kind of like I was planning everything out by myself with Josephine was helping me plan the world. And there was a certain moment though where she couldn't help me anymore because she's supposed to be in the show. So like we world build like to a degree, we did it together. Then we had to stop, and then it was about me coming up with the actual narrative and the actual adventure. And so for her to experience it, as a player, she would have to be, blind to that. So I couldn't really bounce ideas off her anymore. And that week before the show started, I got Dead Planet and Pound of Flesh together, and I started just combing through both of them. And then it helped me really like put together what I needed to kind of bring it all in right at the end, right before the show premiered. Yeah, those were huge helps.
They're definitely something, at one point you just gotta fly solo because you are the one providing the story. But it definitely worked out, and I think that'll be a good time to move into the next section of this interview, which is I'm just gonna start grilling you about building the world, because if Eclipse is anything, it's got this rich world and this really cool concept behind it. So we talked about that you and Josephine both sat down and did the world building. What was the process behind it? What were like the important details that you started out with that you were like, all right, we need to get this decided, and like how did you branch out from there?
I think the high level stuff is where we started. It was firstly like, do we want to make this like in universe, in our actual galaxy, or do we want to make this like an original universe, an original galaxy? And we kind of did a hybrid where we made up this story that there's this eclipse, the golden eclipse occurred, and basically this shroud, this like cloaking of Earth, what quote unquote Earth, it's our Earth in the world that we're building. A new universe was unveiled to the citizens of Earth, basically, and on a high level, that would allow us to basically explore whatever planets we wanted without having to say like, well, isn't Mars there? Is it like Jupiter? We wanted to kind of stay away from having to be too stuck in science fact, and really bend the rules and just have people go along for the ride. So that was the very first start, and it started with just us sitting with each other and typing up things in a Google Doc. It was just like going through like, okay, it's Earth. Okay, what's the next planet? This is one called Eden. Okay, Eden. What's Eden? So let's just like list out Eden. It was like we do a quick paragraph for about each planet to go, just to start, and then it was going to be up to me to kind of revisit stuff and start populating more information as we went along. But we got a good few pages done, and it was and then the factions, I came up with the factions on my own, and those were something that we kind of dive into a little bit. It's not really mentioned too much in the show, but there are these several factions in the world that that'll play a bigger part hopefully in season 2 or future game sessions. Those I came up with, and then I kind of just told Josephine about them, and then together we branched it out in another Google Doc. So we got like the Google Drive is Google Docs for our main source for like versioning control and just like managing the elements of our story. That was where we started, and then episode by episode I would do like a weekly breakdown basically of like what was going to happen, and I would start it off with like at the beginning of the week, like Monday through like Thursday, I would be like generally thinking about what was going to happen. Like nothing
Mm-hmm.
is set in stone. And then Friday night, when the show started, Friday night would be the night we watched the show again. So we'd watch the show with the chat, and it would also be a good chance for me to remember what happened the last episode again. So I got to like play through everything that happened from the outsider point of view. And then that was where I would start writing some more concrete notes. And then Saturday, I would really start writing down stuff and preparation for Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunday, we play the game.
So it was
And
really on
so,
a short turnaround for each
yeah,
episode.
yeah. It was done weekly, and it was the way for me. It was easy way for me to work because I've got a day job. I've got to go home, and I got to go home. I got to go to work, and then when I come home, there was only so much time to like think of the ideas, and then like also like make dinner and do the other
Mm-hmm.
household things. But that was generally how I broke it down. It was like spacing it out over the course of the week and just jotting notes down in my Google Doc. I had like a private Google Doc I used, and I would just jot them down through my phone, and then I would do some like when Josephine was editing the episodes, I would be in the room with her in the office, and I would be writing down some ideas in the Google Doc in the evenings while she edited the videos. And then Saturday was a big push for me because it would be after I had watched the last episode again. So it'd be like, okay, I really like got a refresher on everything that happened, and I also
Mm-hmm.
got to see um, like what chat responded to, what people were responding to. If there was like something that people were more intrigued about, I could actually kind of like lean into that more.
Mm-hmm. It was almost like
Um,
having a test audience every time.
yeah, so it was like, okay, well, this is playing well, this is interesting, this did well, and so like it was kind of like I said, we're doing it for the show, so like um, I was considering the game itself as well as like the final audience that would be watching it. Which that's something that I wouldn't do, obviously for like a regular game. I wouldn't. It would just be focusing on like where the story is going to go on my own and seeing where the players take it. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting little like rhythm, and it was 6 episodes, so went for like 6 weeks. But before that, with the play testing, it was just me coming up with ideas on my own, and that was a little more tricky because it was me thinking of ideas for like a home game, and like I said, there were these ideas that would come up with, and I thought, oh, that'd be a really cool idea, but I don't want to expose that idea to the same players that are going to be in the show later. So I wanted to kind of save certain ideas
Mm-hmm.
for the actual show and just have like my playtest ideas were like, I would call them like they were like pretty good, but they weren't like, it wasn't like 100% like my best idea because I wanted to kind of give the show the best ones. And as a show, once the players started in the show, it made everything much easier because once you can see how they take the story, it becomes a matter of like, okay, well, they're taking it this way, and the pace that they're moving at is really important. So the
Mm-hmm.
pace of like how they progress through the story will dictate how much I can actually do each episode. So there was like three things that would happen each episode, about three things, and depending on if they got caught up talking about certain things here or there, I would have to like push them along with the warden chime, or or and that's the other thing is the warden AI on the ship. I could kind of chime in as if the ship is alerting them and just kind of interrupt whatever they were saying to kind of push the story along, which is something like it's a little more awkward in another system where you're just a DM
Yeah.
or a GM where
Mm-hmm.
you've got to just like you wouldn't just interrupt your players talking, maybe in a regular D&D game unless there's something really important you need to tell them. But for the sake of this game, it was a really nice tool for me to use where I could just interrupt everything they're saying and be like, "There's an alert, happening here," and they'd be like, "Oh wait, what?" And they could just refocus all the energy on the whole new aspect of the story.
So that kind of brings up an interesting point. Did you always know it was going to be 6 episodes long, or was there a potential for it to go possibly longer?
6 was our starting run. We wanted to do, I think 6 was a good amount, and I don't know how we came up with the number 6, but it was just it was 3 and 3, so it's like two halves. So we got like a nice first half, second half, and then like in terms of the way the episodes are structured, there's like 2 in the beginning, 2 in the middle, 2 at the end. So it's kind of like you got this beginning, middle, and end, which helped me a lot start figuring out like how we're going to end things, or how we're going to, like, in the middle of the series, I wanted it to kind of hit a higher point and kind of make like that the whole arc of like the plot going up and down kind of thing. So that kind of helped me figure out like how fast they were going to learn certain information, and just also like seeing how fast they were moving, it would really help me restructure like what they were going to be exposed to the next episodes, because it was like, well, they're only moving this fast, so like, okay, I can't do X, Y, and Z. I can only do A, B, and C, and so like that was something that played into the consideration quite a bit.
So when you were kind of doing the world building, and just designing what would become the initial seed for Eclipse, did you need to like research beforehand? Did you like rewatch Alien and like all these other like movies? Did you consume any sort of media?
Yeah, we rewatched. Actually, I rewatched Alien 4, which is it's a fun one. It's not. It's by no means like a cinema classic, but Aliens 4. It's got like this space pirate group, and it's directed by Jean-Paul Jean. I believe that's his name. And like Ron Perlman's in it, and like Winona Ryder. And instead of it being space truckers that are attacked by the aliens, it's the space pirates, and the whole art direction is completely different. And it's a much more like actiony, kind of like more lighthearted take on Alien. And I watched that again, and it was fun watching that, because I felt like that's where the show is going to go. It was going to end up being like this little ragtag group of people facing off against some monsters. And so that was generally, I felt that was going to be where I know Brian and Patrick and Alex and all of them well enough to know that like it was probably going to lean towards comedy. And I've seen lots of Jasmine stuff, and there was going to be a heavy comedy like slant to whatever we were doing. So that version of the Alien film was the one I chose to watch over again. And then I reread things, like I reread the plot of Event Horizon, and there was some other film I knew I watched. I'm forgetting it now, but it wasn't too much, because I didn't want to completely get caught up, and I didn't want to accidentally steal like someone else's plot line. That was something I was worried about. And we started watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, which obviously isn't sci-fi horror, but a lot of those episodes could easily be sci-fi horror with the right tonal shift. And we started watching the Next Generation right about the time when we started the show. And so we were watching some of those episodes on and off, but it was like season 1 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So it was a bunch of these goofy episodes. So there was like some interesting things going on, but it wasn't anything we were going to like, accidentally rip off. I wanted to kind of keep what was going on somewhat original. So I was trying to be cognizant of like, just doing something new for people. I didn't want people to watch it and go, "Oh, that's Star Trek," like, "Oh, that's Alien again," like. I wanted it to kind of be its own thing.
I think it's really funny that you mentioned Alien Resurrection, because like they brought Joss Whedon at the end of like on the second half of it, and the characters that he made for the crew, for the pirates, ended up becoming like the prototype of what Firefly would be. So I think that's awesome. Okay. Yeah, I think that's awesome that you chose the crewmate, and I totally understand why you would choose Star Trek. That it's a really good look into like how a crew acts with each other, like their day-to-day life.
That was something that was I wanted to be able to um, just see that that classic sci-fi interaction,
Hmm.
and then the show could easily become that. Like it could be its own like a monster of the week kind of thing, which I wouldn't be against. Um, and I think that's something we're keeping in mind, that like if the sci-fi horror aspect of it didn't work out, we want it just to be a sci-fi show and just have fun with it.
Hmm.
So that was something like that we were both really kind of aware of. It was like, yeah, it was going to be scary, but like we weren't too concerned with it being super scary the whole time. And like, you know, it has to have its highs and lows anyway. So that was something that, yeah, Star Trek Next Generation, we're still watching it now, but that was more of an influence than, and then like, yeah, Alien Resurrection, which if you haven't seen Alien Resurrection, it's a very fun film to watch. It's
Yeah, it's
got this
got comedy
really,
in it too, which I think is.
yeah, it's not like it's by no means like the cinematic like juggernaut that Alien is, or like the blockbuster that Aliens is, but it's its own little animal that's like nobody really talks about that one.
I know we touched upon this a little briefly with the factions, but my next question would be: was there anything that you created during the process that hasn't even been touched on by the games, or in your mind probably never will be? And do you mind share like certain locations or certain pieces of lore? And can you share one of them with me?
Yeah, well, our main alien race that's talked about in the game, the others, um, that's an original. I mean, all the alien races are original, but the idea of what the others were, um, I really wanted to play into this kind of like this elder god Cthulhu
Hmm.
aspect, but like I wanted to make it a little more benign. Um, so like these creatures that could cause you to go insane, but like they didn't mean to.
Yeah.
And so like that's the gist of what happens in the show, which is a spoiler if you haven't seen the show yet. But uh, you can watch the show on YouTube and it'll be fine. You can check it out. But yeah, the that was something. The others was our main like our main way to kind of influence the crew with insanity. So like there's certain artifacts that they come in contact with that cause them to go insane, and how we did insanity was interesting to me. I was trying to make it like I was trying to describe it as best I could, coming from a mind of someone who's gone insane. I'm bipolar, and that was something we wanted to kind of keep into the. We put lots of our donations went to NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Health, I think, mental illness. National, and I'm messing up their acronym, but NAMI is where we donated our money to.
Hmm.
And I'm bipolar, and I wanted the insanity and like the idea of going insane to be a little more true to life, and I wanted it to be a little more uh, realistic from a firsthand point of view, and lots of what I was describing in the show it falls more in line with what I've experienced when I've had my own episodes in the past, and I wanted that to kind of be something that like kind of a
Hmm.
firsthand account of like you're never going to be able to know what it's really like to be a blind person, you know, but I could try and describe to you like what it's like to lose contact with reality, and like because it's something that has happened to me before, and it's something that like I wanted to infuse that in the show. I wanted something good to come out of my own experiences, and being able to describe like what going insane can be like was something that I felt was perfectly useful for me to utilize. um, but yeah, that's something that was a big part of the show too.
Hmm.
That insanity and how he handled that, I wanted that to just to be authentic in a way that like authentic, and it's really silly and fun. And if you've ever met someone that's had a break with reality, or who's gone through a psychotic episode, in hindsight, some of the things they're doing are really silly, or some of the things they're doing really funny. And lots of people that go through that can tell you after the fact, they're like, I went crazy, and they can kind of say it a little flippantly because after they've gone through it, they realize what's happened to them. And similar things happen to me where you think things are happening and you think that you're doing something real specific, and you find out you're just leaving crazy things in the freezer. And there's a bunch of funny things that happen to me that and when I look back on it now, I laugh, but in the moment definitely wasn't funny. But
well,
I got to make light of it now.
Yeah, and it's great that you can channel that into your art, into your storytelling. That's honestly, that's awesome. That's probably the most interesting thing of that I might be taken back from this, that how you use that as kind of like a tool, use your own experiences.
Yeah, it was fun. I really like there's a cowboy character in the story, and Brian did a really good job of interacting with that character in character. His Buck Sanchez. The little moments, it's silly and it's funny in the show, but there's little moments where he's losing his nerve and he's not quite sure what to believe anymore. And that stuff, it's kind of true to life, where you kind of get scared and you're like, okay, I'm not really quite sure what's happening to me, but something is happening to me. Something is wrong, but you can't put your finger on it, and because nobody tells you what it's like to go crazy.
Yeah.
But he did a really great job in that show, and it's played off for laughs, but it's all fun. And in the end, it went the way I wanted it to, and I think that we were able to raise some money for good out of it too. So
for good cause.
Yeah. So, and it kind of fed into it. Like I've always loved the Cthulhu mythos, and so that I forgot the whole question. You're talking about stuff we had kind of made up with.
No, that's fine. We go on tangents on the show. That's what it's all about.
Good. Excellent. But yeah, that was something that was important to me, and that those aliens kind of represent. They almost represent just like the unknown. There's more to them, and I don't want to go into it because I don't want to spoil anything with season 2. But there's more to them that we'll get into later. But for the sake of season 1, they were just a lot of fun to play around with.
And then I kind of want to touch on one of my favorite concepts of the show, the idea of the shroud, which is sort of like this protective filter around our solar system. Until it isn't, until it's just taken away. How did you come up with that? Or how did you or Josephine, what happened there? Because that's such a spark right there. That's such a great idea.
I think I almost want to say that was just, I think Josephine just thought of that. She was just kind of like, one day she was like, I had this idea. What if there's this eclipse? She just kind of had the concept fully formed, and she kind of just told me it, and I was like, that sounds awesome. So let's use that. She kind of, I don't know where she got that from, but it was kind of like a fully formed idea that we just ran with. And for me, it was great because we kept it vague, right? So we didn't say exactly what the shroud is, and we still haven't gone into what it could have been, whether it's a technological thing or whether it's some kind of metaphysical thing. But it exists as its own concept. But that's something that I wanted to keep a little vague too. There's certain things I didn't want to. The vaguer I could keep certain things, the better, because it allows the audience to kind of come up with their own idea, and that kind of makes that's what makes the story really interactive. The audience can just kind of brainstorm, what is the shot? What does that mean? Oh, what is that? And just talk about it in chat and start explaining things to themselves. And the more I can give the opportunity for the chat and the audience to speculate on what's going on, the better. And that's another
Mm-hmm.
reason why I didn't try and describe the there's a monstrous race of aliens in this show, and I try to do my best not to describe them too much because I wanted everyone's um, everyone's kind of internal mental image to be kind of what they see, and so I left it fairly vague. I described generally what they do and generally how they function, but I didn't want it to be something that like I didn't want it to be something that I just spelled out like, oh, they look like they're, skinny and blue.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be something really nebulous, and that would allow the audience to um, come up with their own idea of what it could be. And the same with the shroud. So the shroud, uh, whatever it is, or however it functions for the time being, it's up to the audience to kind of come up with like what that means to them. And we could, we'll probably explain more of it later in a further season, but it's something that for the time being, it was a great concept that Josephine kind of just came up with. I just remember her coming up to me saying that she had this idea that calling it Eclipse, and then there was going to be this eclipse which marked the like unveiling of a new planet, basically. Like after an eclipse happened, a new planet appeared. And or like I think the initial idea was, what if the moon exploded or the moon was gone or something? So like you get like a total eclipse, and then like the eclipse happens and the moon is gone. Well, it couldn't really happen because the moon is what eclipses the sun. But this idea that like something big would have happened during the eclipse, and I thought that was a great idea. And we just ran with it and just went all in with that, and that became one of our foundations for the story.
The last question I want to ask you before we go to break.
Sure.
So, interesting enough, when you think of sci-fi, sometimes you think of these like sprawling like mega civilizations that they depict like Earth and like the human race and whatnot. So what made you both decide to set the game on the cusp of the beginning of space exploration, and with like the idea of just like, oh, there's just one other colony now and settlement, rather than something like super far off into the future that have already been way expanded?
Oh yeah. So I think for us, we wanted there to be just it kind of goes into where we want to take the show, and so I'll keep it light with what I'm responding with here. But um, we wanted it to be more of an opportunity. We wanted there to be more of an opportunity to explore the unknown and have this crew be like the first people that would set foot in certain planets,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the more opportunities we had with that, the better. And there's the idea of the space stations and the um, the space stations and the what's the other one? There's like space colonies in this world, but they're not like uh, planet based.
Yeah.
So it has a lot to do with where we want to take the show, and the idea that like it wasn't always going to be sci-fi horror, and they would possibly run into other aliens on other planets, and that um, just kind of see where that leads them,
Okay.
yeah, that. But yeah, we did have that decision where we were like, how are we going to make this? How far in the future are we going to make this, and then how many of these um, colonies are going to be existing? And so we kind of went this Expanse route. Oh, Expanse, that was the other show we watched.
Oh, great show.
Yeah, we had watched that this summer, and yeah, that show was great. But so that heavily influenced kind of the scope, because the Expanse is pretty for for the name, it's Expanse. It's all isolated to like the galaxy here. So the solar system here. So we wanted to kind of keep it within the solar system. We wanted hyperspace travel to be like a big deal, and like the idea that they're going to hyperspace jump somewhere. It was going to be like they could possibly go someplace they don't even know where they're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
There's an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where they jump to like the other side of the galaxy, and it's like this insanely far amount of space they jump to. They don't even know where they don't even know where to begin to like find where they are. So that's something we wanted to keep like in our pocket. Like, okay, we could hyperspace jump to all kinds of places, and we wanted it to be like just a lot more exploration. I think just more exploration and less stopping in at like towns, kind of like in D&D, you stop in at little towns and stuff. But with ours, we wanted it to be more of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of navigating the unknown is kind of a core aspect of the show.
Awesome. And you know what? With that, I think it's time. We'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll jump back into it. We tackled that whole issue of world building, and that was really eye-opening. Thank you for sharing that. Next thing I'm going to grill you on is running the actual game itself and running Eclipse. So we got so many questions for you, but
Sure.
let's take a water break. Everyone, get hydrated, go to the bathroom, and we'll catch you back in only a few minutes. See you then. Everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. We're talking about Mothership RPG and the hit actual play Eclipse, now funding season 2 on Indiegogo. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link once more. Remember, everyone, if we can get to the $6,000 mark in the Indiegogo, I'll be giving away a few free copies of Pound of Flesh module for Mothership RPG. So donate it. It's to a good cause. The show's awesome. The show's amazing. And you get some cool perks for it when you donate. And let's jump right back into it. So,
yeah, thanks for that.
The last time we kind of came in, we've been talking about the world. We talked about kind of all the pre-stuff. Now, I think it's time to jump into like the running of the game itself. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a generic question I like to ask everyone that runs a game in space, because I think it's like something that's really worth exploring, and I always get a different answer every time. So Eclipse was largely about exploring the unknown, and that unknown is what instilled fear throughout the story, and kind of also like that hope too as well. But sometimes the most dangerous thing is our own environment. How did you as the warden balance the ultra dangerous and volatile environment of space and present it as a constant threat to the crew?
Yeah, so with our actual show, the threat of space was present, but it wasn't as prominent as it was in our prototype show we did. There was a lot more like spacewalking happening. I think in this show, we ended up having a lot more of the interactions with like the unknown derelict ship and some of the denizens of the space stations. It didn't really play as much of a role actually as I thought it was going to be. There's a few moments where they do some spacewalking, but it wasn't something we dove into too much for the actual show. It was something that I wanted to play a little more into, but I think with the nature of what they were going on the show, they didn't really fall into that. It didn't fall heavily into that as much as I may have liked. So I definitely want to explore more of that in season 2.
Yeah, so is that like on the season 2 wish list of things to come? Like,
yeah. There was moments where like it was like light where they would go out with the spacesuits, but there wasn't like a big moment where like they were like out in space with spacesuits, and it was like, or like out on like a dangerous planet where like their oxygen supply is got to be monitored and stuff. Like that's the kind of stuff I want to jump into maybe for season 2 for sure. And it's something we didn't really get to go into too much for this first season, but we kind of traded it off for more of the alien stuff going into it,
which definitely was something to get hooked on for sure. Now, so here you are, you're the storyteller, you're the warden, you're the GM, and you got these cast of players. who are all very active, and they're active and they're animated, 'cause that's because that's their job. That's what they need to be for the actual play. Um, how something that's like always a struggle for just normal GNs, and I can only imagine is a struggle for like people in actual play because you have all these people that are more active. There's not really like passive players in the spotlight. How do you give every character their moment in the spotlight? Like how do you balance that?
That's a matter of like, it's a matter of kind of like um, making a judgment call and just checking in with the players. So like, if you're the one saying your bit, you're like, okay, I want to go explore this thing, and I'm not quite sure about this, so I need to go ahead and explore exactly what this means to me, and like my character is concerned about this, and like I'm really worried about this. And one thing with our show is that the characters talk in first person for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really do the descriptions, but as soon as they would say, I'd like to, like my key phrase I'd hear them say was when they say I'd like to, and in following whatever that statement is. So like they say,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go and check on such and such, and that'll be the moment where I could stop them there and go, okay, so you'll do that, and in the like that would be my transition. So like you'll do that, and now we go over to you, and then just kind of cycling through everyone. And then in certain moments, if I felt like there was someone that wasn't getting enough time, I would make sure to jump over to them. So like, so what are you doing? Tell us what like. It'd be that
Mm-hmm.
question, just like, what are you doing? What's up? Like, what's going on with you? And then they'd be like, well, I want to do this, and I'm over here doing this. And like, all right. So like, it was a matter of you just kind of guide them that way. Like as soon as they declare what they want to do, you acknowledge it, and in that moment, that's your time to transition. So like, you acknowledge what they want to do, you stop it, and then you transition over to someone else. This is if they're in a different area. Obviously, if the characters are together, you don't interrupt as much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're supposed to be interacting together. But for the most of the show, there would be characters in different parts of the ship, and or characters on board the ship and some characters off the ship. And so it'd be a matter of having to kind of navigate that back and forth. But Josephine helped me with some of that. She gave me some good instruction on what to do and what her and Alex were prepared to do. She was like, when we've been on other shows, specifically like LA by Night, um, she'll say, we know that things are going to change and trade off. So like, we're
Mm-hmm.
ready for that. And it was a matter of me getting everyone kind of into that little loop of like, okay, so you're doing that. Let's go over to you now. What are you doing? Okay, you're doing that. What are you doing? Let's go over here to this person. Okay, so let's join them back over here. And so I just kind of conducting it back and forth like that, just bouncing back and forth between every one in the group and making sure they have their say. Sometimes you could tell a character wasn't really like, if a player wasn't didn't have too much to say in that moment, they might just say, "Oh, I'm over here checking on this thing," and they might just kind of like throw out like a little phrase, and I could kind of clue in on that and just be like, "Okay, so you're not really you're more he's more listening into like what the other two players are doing."
Mm-hmm.
And so like, because in the moment too, you get curious as to like, oh, what are these characters saying, and you want to kind of be part of it. Um, so yeah, it's just like a conducting. It's just keeping keeping in mind how many people are talking and when people are saying what, and then making sure no people are talking over each other. That's important. Um, and just being just polite about it, just acknowledging like, okay, so you want to do that? Great. Now you do. Now that you're doing that, let's go to person B. Um, but yeah, that's the main back and forth we had. Um, yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And it definitely it's gonna be a struggle sometimes. But I think definitely having also the kind of backdrop of just being able to edit your videos before you put them up, you can kind
Mm-hmm.
of control them a little bit more there. But I think I think that's one of the strengths of the show for sure is that I feel like everyone has their time to shine. And I think there's not I can't pick out a main character, which is a good thing, because I feel like they
Yeah,
definitely are.
Yeah, that's the one thing that we always try and stay away from with, well, I think with any of these RPG shows, the key is to not have a main character because
Hmm.
then you're kind of doing it wrong. Um, there can be moments where you're following a character's story or like a specific character's arc, and they basically become the quote unquote main character for a time. But I think every character in our show had their chance to shine, whether it was through a backstory reveal or whether it was through just a specific moment that like they got to be that character. Like Buckford was the character who made first contact and was able to kind of um, be he was able to be that character that was doing the crazy stuff. And
Hmm.
then we got some lore drops from Josephine's character, and then Alex's character had some things he got to reveal, and Jasmine's character had a bunch of a bunch of great moments and really powerful like interactions with the other characters that like only Jasmine could kind of facilitate.
Hmm.
And then we've got some great stories from Patrick's character, who had his own backstory. He got to reveal some things from his past, and it was like each person had their moment throughout the season to shine, and it kind of happened organically. And I know there would be a little bit of planning ahead of time where like if somebody wanted to make sure they talked to a certain character, they would tell me before the session, just to be like, I want to talk to this person, and I'd be like, okay. So I just make sure to at least facilitate time for that.
Hmm.
And that was kind of a key too. I'd ask everyone, like, is there anything specifically um, that you want to do this session? Because I had to plan for it, so it'd be like, what is it you want to do this session? And everyone would kind of give me their little 2 cents, and I could formulate generally what I would do, and just maybe a matter of bouncing it off, bouncing the spotlight from one person to the other. That's what it feels
Hmm.
like. It feels like you got the spotlight. You're just pointing at different
You
people.
just kind of going through the motions, like you said, like a
Yeah,
conductor.
yeah, yeah.
So something I do want to focus in on, and it's always for when actual plays do it, it always like is something that's like interests me a lot. So for the lens of a production angle, how did you prepare guest stars for appearing in the clips itself? Do you usually like give them a script or or something or finer points like, hey, this is what the person you're playing is all about, or is it for the most part do you let them run free?
I let him run free, at least with our guest star Neuro Fourier. He got to run pretty free. I gave him the down low of like what he needed to be in this. Like
Mm-hmm.
we needed a specific role, and so I told him like we need this kind of character. That's what we need. And and I said you could perform that character however you'd like, but like or he could flavor it however he wanted. But it was a situation where I was like, but it needs to be a character that facilitates this specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave some backstory as to like he got some more lore as to what the creatures were ahead of time, and some stuff that the players didn't have, because as an outsider player, I wanted him to be able to really feel like he's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that it wasn't too much though. I didn't like give him like a novel, or he didn't get like a bunch of documents explaining the backstory of the world. It was fairly concise,
Mm-hmm.
but and then I would just let him kind of go with it and see what it was like, see what he came up with. And there was some fun moments that he came up with in the show, like
Yeah, he
in the
killed it.
moment. And so it's just like, oh, okay, like I guess this is how the character acts now, or like or like, oh, this is something that the character does now too. But it was fun.
The next point I want to go into, kind of from there, because a little more production stuff. Well, actually, this is something we actually talked about. So you talked about pacing, and I think that one thing that Eclipse excels at is keeping a really good pace of the story. Like it doesn't like boggle down on every one thing, and you don't feel your attention waning at any one point, which is something I can't say for a lot of like actual plays in general. Is there like a sort of guideline you use to keep like the pacing, or is it
Um,
like a rule of thumb that you kind of have?
well, thanks for that. But yeah. So for me, it was really just more of a gut instinct thing. It
Mm-hmm.
was like there would be in the moment as they were going through there are certain times when the characters were talking and it felt in the moment like man, like this is going on for too long, like this is gonna get boring soon. And what we found out was that like upon reviewing it during the edit, and adding in the music in the background, it really changed the pacing entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And the music we added in later really can change the whole vibe of the scene. So like if something felt like it was too long or too tedious, uh, the music provided by Stargrave, my friend Brandon Lejeune, um, he his music was able to really take it from like a dragged out kind of moment to like three different moments where we
Mm-hmm.
switched the track up during the conversation. We switched the track up, and then as the track was changing, it really kind of made the conversation kind of go up and down versus just stay flat. Um, and it was more of a gut instinct kind of thing. There was only a few moments in the show where I felt like the characters were getting too caught up in certain things and I had to move it along. But like I said, I had the warden beacon to
Mm-hmm.
activate. So at any time I could activate that and just give them a notification, and that notification would kind of influence the pace of the play.
That's good though that they like self-regulated for the most part. From the sound of it.
Yeah.
Now this is sort of going to be an open-ended question. This next one, what's the one? Do you watch a lot of actual plays, like in general? Or
I've watched a few, but not too many. There's a few that I've watched, a few on the Critical Role channel,
mm-hmm.
and specifically we watch Critical Role, and they've had some of their side quest games that they've done that we kept up with, and we watched a few leading into the show, and I watched several Mothership actual plays
Okay.
before the show. I watched about three of them, and I was trying to see what other people were doing with Mothership and how they handled it. And there was all kinds of methods that I got to see. Nobody was doing it the way we wanted to do it specifically, and there was a really good one. I gotta think what it's called. I'll have to look it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's called like the mimic, I think, something like the mimic. But there was these. It was a really nice one where they maybe it's the mimic. I don't know. I can't remember it now. But
Mm-hmm.
I watched about three of those beforehand, and I watched those on the side while I was just getting some work done, and they helped me determine like the rules and how the rules function, um, because they were a lot more focused on the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good for me to really watch and learn like, okay, so this is how the guy is handling the position of warden, and this is how they're handling like the dice rolls. And they would stop and they would do the thing that I don't like, where they stop and explain the rules, which it's fine for everyone. I don't. I'm gonna say I don't like it. I mean, when I run a game, I don't like doing that. But when I play a game, I'll look up the rules myself all the time. But that's something that really helped me out.
Mm-hmm.
Watching actual plays from other people that did the Mothership RPG, and just seeing like the stories they were telling. I saw lots of. There was like a couple versions of Dead Planet I saw, and it was different. They were much more mechanics driven, and it was much more like you're watching them play this game versus you're watching a show. So I was pretty confident that we were putting something new out there,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the other reason I watched it. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't someone else already doing what we were doing. Like if there was someone else like just nailing it, I'd be like, oh man, they already
Uh-huh.
beat us to it.
Psych
But
yourself out already.
Yeah.
So what's kind of leading off that? Was there anything that you were like watching all the actual plays? You're like, wow, I wish there like what's one thing that you wish these actual plays kind of did more in general that you did in Eclipse?
Um, let's see. It's. I feel like I wish there were more original takes on it. There's a there's a way people play the game where you when you play the game you describe what you're seeing. And there
Mm-hmm.
was a few of the actual plays where the people would say like instead of describing in an original way, they would reference a movie like to describe it. And so that's something we couldn't do in our show. Like I couldn't I wasn't going to like explain something through a reference. So like at no point in our show do I say the creature's mouth opens slowly like an alien. Like I didn't want that to pop up. I didn't want people's minds to go to another IP
Mm-hmm.
or to another franchise. I wanted it to stay within our world. So like there was no moment where I wanted it to be like the blade retracts, not unlike the predator. Um, and that was important to me to make sure that we kept it original in that way. And that's something that in a normal game, I mean, people explain things and talk, and they use references all the time because it helps you wrap your head around what you're seeing and stuff, right? And that's something like our players are too. They're good about they were in character the whole time, so no character was going to randomly spat out a reference to like a film
Mm-hmm.
or like a video game. Like it could have easily been like this creature looks just like the such and such from Dead Space, and it'd be like, oh, okay, so it's just that thing then. I wanted it to be something unique to our game, so I wanted to keep it away from any um, kind of like I call them like shortcuts or cheats, where you're just
Yeah.
gonna like throw it out there and people are gonna go, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, I get it. I saw Alien, you know.
Yeah, 'cause it's kind of you're breaking your immersion a little bit whenever you.
Yeah, it's immersion breaking. Any kind of immersion breaking, we tried to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
That was a general rule of thumb, and so like looking up the rules was a no-no, and making movie references was a no-no, and like specifically me, like I couldn't do any of that stuff. So I'd have to kind of come up with descriptions that were more generalized and more. Um, it forces you to be a little more elaborative and just
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying and like with what you're um, describing. Yeah, but that's something that was a big part of it.
All right. So when you were kind of because you talk about like designing the sessions week to week within like that 3 day period, but before you even started, like, did you have like the framework for the story? Like right now, did you have an idea of your head where it was gonna go?
Yeah, I had a general idea. I had a general idea of where it was going to go from the beginning, and that was something that I kind of like. I didn't want to make it too specific because the players could go anywhere with it. So like like you don't want to like no matter what, the players could take it to a whole different place at any moment, at any time. So like you can't be too precious with your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew generally where I wanted it to go, and I knew generally what was going to happen. And then, like, I generally knew at what moments they were going to run into certain aliens, and then that was it. And so, like, that was the crux of my planning was like, I kept it fairly open and fairly nebulous right up until the episode started. That was only after the first two episodes. The first two episodes I planned out a lot, and then by the third episode I was like, okay, like planning out a lot is just a fool's errand. So I need to just stick with the flow and like let the players, like I let them start the show off, and wherever they start taking it, I can guide them through the tools I have as the warden,
Mm-hmm.
and just lead them where I want them to a certain degree, and then they're inevitably going to either miss something or they're just not going to even acknowledge something. and or they're not going to pick up on something. Like you might lay out something for them to like stumble upon, and they'll just be like, we're not going to do that, and you're just like, okay, well, never mind. So but the story was planned out from the beginning. Where we're going to end it was planned out, and it was just a matter of like how many beats are going to happen between that time, you know.
So was there anything that you planned that just like you're like, oh, I can't wait for them to experience this, and then it just never happened?
Yeah, there was a whole spaceport moment. Like there was a whole spaceport that was like I had planned out. Like there was this whole shop where there was like these body modifications, and there was this whole like description of this character and all the stuff they had, and there was like they see these certain things in the shop. I might still use this, so I'm not saying too much, but there was all these kinds of like descriptions of these things in the shops, and then like there was this extra like restaurants and bars and stuff I had planned out, and they were just like, we're gonna leave. So I was like, all right, never mind. So they're just not gonna be on that spaceport anymore. That was the first time when I realized I was like, okay, I planned too much, because they barely even hung out there, and it was like they were gone. So I was like, okay, can't do that again. But yeah, that was the main one, of that spaceport. And there was a character of the spaceport that I thought would have been fun to do, but I had to like drop it. And there was a location that they would have met. There's a character named Baxter Veda, and he was supposed to be at his own location that they would have to go to and find. They were supposed to find him, but the adventure took a turn, and they just weren't searching for him, and so I had to like make him appear in the story. So it's like, okay, they're not going to look for him, so he's just going to happen to be where they are, because I needed them to meet him for the story to progress. I was excited for them to meet that character, because he was like a fun character for me to do. And there was a store that was really fun. We did a store called Surplus Plus, and it was the whole thing is it's an empty store, but it's got an automated AI,
Okay.
like a holographic AI
Stores of the
store
future
owner. Yeah.
Awesome. So I would say players like constantly, I feel like there's so many ideas on GM's cutting room floors that like they're just like, well, you might still use it, like you said, it's for season 2 wish list.
Yeah, that's the part of it that like which is nice, is that I can still reuse it, even if I said what it is, which was like, it was like a body modification shop, and it was this lady who was going to have like these like little animatronic toys that are walking around, and like they were talking and stuff. So it would have been a weird scene. It would have been really creepy. And it was going to be this whole like fake out where they were going to see these little creatures and they're going to think they're aliens, and it wasn't aliens.
It was just little robots.
But it's like something I could reskin. It's easy to reskin that and turn it into something else later on, because the way you describe it, the way you release the information is how they're going to perceive it. So I can always just release the information in a different order, and it'll be like, a whole new experience for them.
Was there like ever a doubt that the characters were gonna survive their struggles and like the mysteries through season 1, or
Yeah, definitely. Mothership RPG is not an easy RPG to survive. That's the big thing about it. So if you're going to play the Mothership RPG, it's designed to make you go insane and die really quickly. And like the problem is we have a show we're putting on. So we were all prepared for someone to die, but it was something that I was cognizant about, because like the general rule of thumb of Mothership is that you should treat every encounter, you should treat like a boss encounter, because like it's so easy to get injured, and then like once you're injured, you just die, and then like or you can go insane, and like the certain characters can go insane, and if they go insane, then other characters can go insane, and so it's just like this whole. It's almost like the game, the game Dark Souls, or
Yeah,
like
you could just get.
yeah, it's just like or Bloodborne, where it's just like it's easy to die very quickly, and so that was the one thing I was really cognizant about, because like I didn't want, like episode 3, if we lose a character, we're gonna have to like replace them, um, but it was too early to like be attached to the characters. Like I wanted the people to get attached to the characters first. If we're gonna lose a character, I want them to die like after you get to know them. Um, because if it was episode 1 or 2, you'd be like, well, we barely got to know that character, so whatever. Um, season 2 will be much more of like an open field for like death, hopefully. So like I think people should be more prepared for like potential character death in season 2 than season 1, because like it's more of an investment now. It makes it much more of a interesting prospect.
Everyone's hooked, so it's time to bring the axe. You heard that, everyone? Get your death card bingos out. Get ready. Mark who you think's gonna die. Um, but no, like that's also like a really interesting like thing to think about, though. If someone dies in season 2, I mean, do they just make another character? Do you bring another cast member in to replace them? Because that's sort of like the idea, like like I see a lot of D&D campaigns. It's like, oh, my fighter died. Here's his twin brother. Like that's him.
Yeah,
just
I would like to, as much as I like playing with the people that are playing, I think it would be more fun to replace them completely. Like if somebody dies, an entirely new like performer comes on and plays a new character. I feel like that's a little more in line with the show, where like everyone's playing in first person. Um, I don't think we would do that, but it would be more fun for me to have like an entirely new person have to show up and be like, okay, well, that other guy's gone. He dies. He's literally like off the show. He's dead. But the new character has got to like actually feel out, like learning to be with the crew and everything. Like I said, I don't think we'd actually do that, but that to me is a much more interesting prospect for a show. I feel like that's something that like I don't know if there's too many shows that are doing that, where like the character's death is going to be like a permanent thing and you have to replace the person entirely. It's a logistic nightmare. Like, so it would be horrible to like completely find a new person that has the same schedule availability.
Oh yeah.
So feasibly, it's not realistic, but it's kind of like a wish list. That'd be a fun show to see, where like every time somebody dies, it's just an entirely new person has to show up.
Possibly a stretch goal for season 2 of the Indiegogo. Replace
Yeah,
replaceable cast member. That's so messed up to say it like that, but they get what we mean.
expendable cast members.
Expendable. That's the 20K stretch goal you haven't revealed yet. Well, no, but
Yeah.
it is hard to imagine what the show would be like without any of the crew in there, because they're all such personalities and they really do drive it.
Yeah, everyone got endeared to each character, so I'm glad that it seemed like the audience had a good spread of like favorites, which is nice. It's nice if there's an even distribution of like fan favorites versus like if it's just like these 2 characters that people love and no one else, they don't like anyone else. That always gets weird, too, with like because it's easy to find that out in Twitch. You see the live responses of
Yeah.
people. So it's just like, okay, like this character's a fan favorite. You understand it.
So kind of like an extra question when I add in there, was there anything the audience reacted to that you're like really that like you like not that you like that, but like you were surprised to see it got as big as a response than it did?
I don't think there was anything that really surprised us. The creepy stuff surprised. Like I think the stuff that the audience thought was really creepy turned out better than I expected. And I know Josephine added in Lord Kingsley, and he was like he was immediately a fan favorite. So that was like, I mean, I think she knew what she was doing by adding in like this dog character that was just described as like a dog in a spacesuit on board the ship. So I wouldn't say that was necessarily a surprise so much as it was like a well thought out tactic on her part.
You got to have the mascot character. That's like essential.
Yeah. Yeah. He turned out to be a fan favorite. We turned him into a little emote, and he's available as a pin on the Kickstarter. We're going to have him as an enamel pin, and the creepy stuff that we did on the show
Mm-hmm.
was like there's certain things worked out way better than I expected. Then because when you're describing it, it's hard to tell if people are going to even like pick up on it as like eerie or creepy. And my range of what I think is creepy and scary is probably a lot um, more extreme than what
Mm-hmm.
most people think of. So I always kind of forget that too. So like when it comes down to it, like most of the stuff I think is creepy and scary is definitely creepy and scary. And I just don't realize that like I'm kind of like over here. Like I said, I grew up watching Alien and Predator as a kid. So like there's things I'm used to that other people are like, like more sheltered or sensitive to.
Mm-hmm. It definitely goes back to like the first point you said. So, in your mind, because now I'm kind of starting to like get to like the overall questions about Eclipse. In your mind, what was the most unexpected moment that the players did?
The most unexpected moment. There was there was some moments where the characters I don't there wasn't anything that really surprised me too much. The skipping out the starport was something that was unexpected because I was really thinking they were going to explore that a lot more. I thought it was going to be a much more of like this exploratory group that there's going to be like, oh, we want to go here, we want to go there. So I was prepared to I was prepared to have to answer a bunch of questions and like make up a bunch of NPCs and just. I know Josephine has a habit of asking like in character. She'd always ask, "And what's your name?" So I had a bunch of names prepped because she'll always ask that in character, and so I had to think of a name. So I had like names thought of for all these people, and like every character had a first and last name, and like, um, but there was nothing in particular that surprised me too much. Um, there was a lot of debate over some of like Kiko's some of Kiko's like deception in the show,
Mm-hmm.
and that was something that like kept flaring up, and I wanted to get past that because we had the rest of the show to get onto, and I wanted to kind of squash that up a little bit. But it was a situation where Kiko's character was like she had tricked them pretty well, pretty good. So I understood that they were upset. Um, that's more of an in-world thing. Um, yeah, the main thing was I thought they were going to be exploring a lot more. Some of the cities that are like the starports that they were introduced to, and there wasn't too much time to explore as much as I was hoping for.
They were very much like, go. We're heading straight towards the end. We're going straight towards the objective. And yeah, someone said they left behind a ton of loot at the starport.
Yeah, they were just more. They were just like it was a like they could have spent a whole episode at the starport and just not left. Like at least the first starport, and I think they ended up leaving like fairly quickly, and I think the first episode, I also had it was like the first episode I had this whole like area planned out where they were at the starport and like there was these different places they're gonna go find the crew. I thought Kiko was gonna have to go find the crew and like go into the town and like explore
Mm-hmm.
some, and it ended up not planning out that way at all. Um, but yeah, that was that was something that was unexpected. There was a character I introduced early on that they just didn't hire onto the crew, and his name was Jax, and I expected them to hire him on because he was just like a crazy character that would have been fun to play. But they immediately were just like, no, no, we're not going to hire you. And like, so I was like, I had like thought of him. He was going to be this cool, like, he was like this gunner character that was going to be like uh, the guy you can kind of throw at the monsters and he would just go kill them. Um, and they immediately just sort of like turned him down. They're like, no, we're not going to hire him. So I was like, really? And in my mind, I was like, really? They don't want to hire him? They read into everything he said completely opposite of what I planned. Like, he was supposed to be a guy where he says, if you point me that direction, I'll shoot it. So he's just basically, he doesn't ask any questions. He was gonna do whatever you say, and just not ask any questions. And they misread it as like he's not loyal. Like, like as long as you pay him, he'll work for you. But he would have been this like super like the super like ready to go character, and like he had this crazy accent, and he was like loud and boisterous, and they were just like, no, we're not gonna hire this guy, he's crazy.
Oh, no.
And I was like, okay, whatever. So much for him.
Gotta have to lose. You gotta pick your battles, I guess.
Yeah, I could have sworn they were gonna pick him, but it was just like this immediate shutdown.
That's always
yeah.
like the ironic part. You're like, oh, they're gonna love this character, and then they don't interact with him, and then the one random character you never expected to like amount to anything is like the NPC they latch onto. Like,
Yeah,
what the hell?
That's something that I was wondering if that was going to happen. I didn't think that really happened with this show, or at least this season. There wasn't a particular like NPC that they latched onto. But oh yeah, I just remember being shocked they didn't pick him, and I was like, really? They didn't pick him? I was like, huh. Okay.
So, kind of going off the light heart and just something more serious. When you were planning out Eclipse, the two of you, did you ever have the intent that like you're like, all right, this is gonna be like a 1-season show, or was it always like this is gonna go on for a few seasons?
We weren't sure. I think we knew we wanted to do 1 season for sure, and we were going to see where it would go from there. I think it was going to be largely determined by like the audience and the support coming from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
We had some fairly good numbers. I think they averaged out to like, like about 100 or so, 150 each episode, maybe 200 at certain times. It kind of varied. Each episode was different, so like we take that into consideration, and really just like seeing what the chat says too, like if they're enjoying this, if they seem to like it, like because we were trying to have fun performing the show for people. That's kind of the aspect of it, is it's supposed to be a show, so without the audience it doesn't really function, because otherwise you wouldn't be we would not just play a game on Twitch as an RPG group. Like Josephine and I aren't the kind of people that would just do it for fun. We have our own RPG games we play outside of the streaming world, and it's important to us that they're not being streamed, because like you can just relax, you can play the game, you don't need to worry about anything. The moment it becomes like a thing where people want to share it online, then it's like, okay, you got to think about it now. And Josephine especially has to think about it. She's a streamer and host on various Twitch channels, so like she becomes like the face. Her face is being used on the show suddenly, so then she's got to like, okay, now I'm on this thing, it's going to represent me. And as far as I'm concerned, I just like doing the show for people. To me, was more important than just the regular RPG. There's an RPG we do have that we play that we play every Monday. It's a home game, and that's our own thing, and that's something that like I can't ever imagine that being online. But with season 1, we watched the numbers, and we were tracking it fairly well, and we think we can get it going with season 2. We've got some good numbers with the Kickstarter, or the Indiegogo, and I think we've got a flexible goal set up. So like even if we don't hit the end goal number, we're going to use the funds we do get to do something for season 2. We'll figure out a way to make season 2 happen. We just got to figure out how things are looking, and right now it's still open, so we're still accepting all kinds of donations, and I think overall it's something that like it's just hard to tell when you start it out. Like on the first episode we got front page, and that boosted our numbers. But that that only lasts for so long, and it literally only lasts for so long before they take you off the front page. And it's a matter of people really sticking with the show, and if the YouTube are probably going to have people coming back to the season 2 show, hopefully. And we have we had it planned out, and it's just something that like we weren't sure if we're going to do it yet. Basically, that's to sum it up. We weren't sure, and we'd like to do season 2 for sure at this point, and I think that we have some fun stories to tell. Yeah,
all takes that leap of faith. Now, my final, I feel like, serious question before I start, wrapping everything up. In your mind, is this a show that you think you can do seasons and seasons and seasons upon, or do you already see the end? Do you know like how many seasons it's gonna take?
I would want it to be a finite show. I feel like if we had the capability to do seasons and seasons, I would like it to be a different show. I would like to change it up. So like I would like to do like so many seasons of Eclipse, and then do a different show, and do so many seasons of that show, and just kind of change it. It's having like different members of the same kind of casts coming in, doing different roles, almost like a like the show American Horror Story, where each season is a different story. It's a different setting, the same actors, right? In each season. I like that idea of like a seasonal anthology where like so after so many seasons of Eclipse, we would wrap it up and have an entirely different show in a different world, and different characters, but the same performers, and that would be fun to do. That's with the amount of work it takes to get it together, to get it online. I think if that capability is there, I would want to see some variety. Eventually I just know myself, and I know that eventually I'd want to change it up and explore some different ideas.
And do you think this might be like the start of your actual play starring career, like that you might be appearing in other stuff?
I don't know about myself. I don't know about any of the Jasmine and Alex Josephine. They already appear in many other actual plays, and Brian runs his own D&D stream on the internet broadcast system station, and Patrick he's kind of our gun for hire. He's just out there doing things. But I don't know about myself if I would be on a different show. I like playing the games. I like getting really into the character myself, and I like doing like a voice and everything. And I feel like it might be a situation where the only way to get to really do a crazy over-the-top character is to play online, because some of the home games, people just aren't that into it. And you could be a little much if you're
that energy,
like to get the energy there, and people, like, if it's someone's first game, they're self-conscious and they don't want to go all out, and like you got to read the room too. So like if no one else is acting that way, like if it's more about the mechanics, then the game needs to be more about the mechanics, and like if it's more about the gameplay, the role play, then the game's more about the role play. But I wouldn't be against playing in another show, maybe for a limited time or something. But I don't know. It's something I haven't really considered.
Well, you heard that, audience. You heard that, Gehenna. We're having Miguel back on the show, at least for a stream, maybe a one shot. We'll get him. We'll get him quickly. We'll get him slowly, I should say. All right. Well, this is about the time of the show. You've done amazingly well, so I get to do what I consider is my favorite part, which is what I call my inspirational wrap up. Well, we've been talking for the past 2 hours about, this brainchild of yours and Josephine's, an exceptional season 1 with an RPG that's very well respected and loved by a lot of people. I need to know, the audience needs to know, is you dropped a few crumbs already, but can we get one more little thing of season 2? Anything that you can drop and like let us hype for?
Anything I can drop? Well, if you've watched season 1, we're gonna open it up. I can kind of tell you, we're probably gonna open it up right on the tail of season 1, where amidst the chase sequence, which it started up at the end of season 1, and so we're gonna kind of pick it up from there. We might do a little bit of a time jump. I'm debating it. I don't know. It might be a little bit of a time jump, but otherwise, we've just got a bunch more alien races we're going to be introducing, and there'll be a lot more interspecies communication, and a lot more. It should be a lot more into the grander sci-fi and less of the sci-fi horror. That's something we want to kind of explore with season 2. Is like more of the introducing new alien races and introducing new like alien customs and like alien like cultures, exploring the alien cultures and possibly having like alien crew members. All those kind of things are stuff we're excited to kind of get into.
Bring on the xenocultures. We're getting like Mass Effect in here. I love it. I think everyone was super excited about that. Once again, everyone, I'm gonna drop the Indiegogo one more time. Please donate. This actual play is amazingly produced. It's got a great cast, a great warden. After talking to you, I can definitely reassure myself of that. And an awesome show, and I can't wait to see what you guys are doing more in the future. But before we do all this, Miguel, thank you for coming on, and thank you for geeking out with me for 2 hours about this, because it's I pride myself on grilling a lot of people and just constantly talking through the conversation for them, but you made some awesome points, and you really you took the questions I gave and you really opened up. So I need to ask, one, how are you doing at this current state of time, especially in these crazy times we're in? And two, what you got going on?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. We've been taking our nice little break from season 1, and it was, like I said before, it was a nonstop work week, and poor Josephine was editing like the entire week. She was editing that video for 6 weeks straight, and since then it's been a matter of like just getting some relaxation in. And what have I got going on? I work for Turn Me Up Games, and you can find our we released Life is Strange for the mobile phone, iOS, and we released Borderlands for Switch, and we've got more games coming out, and that's my day job. So be on the lookout for games from Turn Me Up Games, and that's what I've got going on right now. I go to work, and then it's not much to do. You can't go anywhere, so go to work, come home, and with Thanksgiving's coming up, so we have some good relaxing time heading our way.
That's awesome. And if I just say so myself, your art on your website is amazing. For anyone that hasn't visited Miguel's website, you should definitely go and do so, because the illustrations on there is on. It's especially I love Junjito, so especially the Uzumaki stuff. I was like, oh, this is right up my alley.
Yeah.
But
I love Uzumaki. We'll have to talk about that sometime.
Oh, definitely. Well, you know what? I feel like that's a deep dive in itself, and I'll have you back on for sure. Where can everyone find you at, social media wise?
Social media, I'm at Miguel Coronado III on Twitter, and Instagram I'm Mike086, and my website's www.mciii.net, and that's my online portfolio, which need to update. It hasn't been updated in a while, so there's a bunch of old work on there now.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Miguel, for sitting here and talking to us. Go watch Eclipse, watch replays, donate to everyone. That's another episode of the deep dive in the can. Surprisingly, we've gone this far. This is our 7th episode, and we got a few more episodes, at least 2 more planned before the end of the year and the end of our season 1. So stay tuned for more deep dives in 2 more weeks, where we're going to be finally doing that Kult episode, I think. But I wanted to do this now because it was just the perfect time for Kickstarter going on. I was like, I'm doing Mothership. He's like, we're gonna contact them. We're gonna bring them on. It's gonna be awesome. The steel is hot. Let's hit it.
Yeah,
So
thanks for having me on, and thanks again for all the great questions.
no, thank you for coming on. This is on. This is like what I like to do. So it was so much fun. Um, so
Sure.
thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you everyone again. Like I said, I haven't said enough. Go donate to the Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Damn it, I'm dumb. Go watch it. Are the videos on YouTube yet, or is everything on YouTube yet?
Yeah, season 1's on YouTube, so you can go check out season 1 right now.
And also volume 1 with all the music, if they like the music during the show as well, is out, I believe.
Yes, volume 1 of the music from Stargrave is online on his SoundCloud. I believe it's on all platforms like iTunes, SoundCloud. If you look up Stargrave, he's got his EP out to Into the Void, which is what we used for a large part of the show.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today, everyone. You'll have a great night, depending on what time zone you're in. And have a happy November holiday, whether it's Thanksgiving or anything else. And stay good during all this. All right, everyone. Have a great one. Waving you all goodbye. Wait. Before you go, I forgot to plug myself. Goddamn, I always have to do this at the end of every deep dive. I swear, it happened at the end of anyone. If anyone's still watching, if you like me, if you thought I was cool, if you want to watch more deep dives, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at @NoblemanNick. I don't got a lot of followers, I ain't gonna lie. I got like 98, 97. I'm close to 100, and that warms me with a fuzzy feeling. Go ahead and follow Gehenna at Gehenna Gaming. They're awesome. Follow everyone associated with them. They're awesome. They're the ones that gave me this little job, and I love them all. And yeah, holy shit, it's been a great time, and we're almost at the end of season 1. Almost at the end of season 1. I never thought I would make it through a season, and yeah, I thank you everyone. This was our most popular episode so far. We usually get numbers a little bit over 20. We broke the 30, almost got to 40 in the very beginning of the show. So thank you to everyone. Thank you for Miguel to being on here. Thank you for Josephine for facilitating all that contact. Thank you for Eclipse for existing. Because of awesome actual plays that didn't exist, I wouldn't be able to do this. Oh, also, message goes to Josephine. I still want you on the show at least once. You were supposed to be on my panel at VHC. If you couldn't make it, I completely understand, but I haven't forgotten about you. So you're on the wish list, and you'll be back on soon, hopefully, if you're down for it. Well, hope everyone's having a good night tonight, and hope you all have a great sleep, whatever you're doing. Maybe you're night owls, but yeah, follow me at NoblemanNick. I don't really have much to talk about. I just want to talk to y'all and tell me how much I appreciate y'all for watching this show. And if you have any ideas for more deep dives or systems or no great people you want to get on the show, tag me in them. I'm always down to listen. All right, this is the actual end. Goodbye, everyone. You thought I was actually leaving. I'm not. I'm still here. So I'm here to the end. Also, we got some crazy stuff going on. Let me plug some Gehenna stuff if you're still here. We got on Thursdays Witchburner, an awesome show with playing the game Witchburner. That's from Stephanie from Charm Person Games. She's awesome. Give them a like. Mondays we have Gehenna Valley. If you ever want to watch monster art stuff, they're on season 2. That's awesome. I love everyone on that show. A lot of them were my friends. I think all of them are my friends that are on that show. They're amazing. Just give them a watch. Sunday we have, I like to call Sunday morning Warhammer, Wrath and Glory. That's great. That's the dudes from Darker Days Radio. Awesome stuff. I listen to them every day. They get me through work, so I appreciate them. All right, that's all my plugs I have for today. And just watch out for more stuff from me, because yeah, some crazy stuff's gonna come down the pipeline that I'm not allowed to talk about yet. Everyone, have a good night. That's actually it. I'm done. Wait, one more thing. Oh my god, I didn't plug Tuesday Night Games. They make the game Mothership. The Survival Player's Guide is free to download as a PDF. It only costs like 15 bucks if you want to order it as a physical zine. Like, go ahead and just give it a watch. This game is being put out there. It's so amazing. Just enjoy it. Yeah, and they have some other stuff too. They have this great super dungeon coming out called, I believe it's called the Gridania Descends, yes. I would have to look it up, but they have an awesome mega dungeon coming out. They have other awesome cool stuff. They have a Pound of Flesh, Dead Planet, all the stuff we talked about there. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't make the season 2 $6,000. Shame on me, shame on y'all. So I will not be giving the giveaway. But yeah, I still might give the giveaway. Who knows? Let's see. Let's check my wallet. All right. For real though, play more games. Peace out, and stick together in this pandemic, because it's a crazy year and a crazy time, and I really understand that. And thank you to all the past and future guests that'll be on this show. All right, have a good night. Get some sleep, or not. It's up to you.